On this episode, we chat with Ilya Smirnoff from Childline Thailand about their work helping neglected or abused children on the streets of Bangkok.
So if you've ever wondered how these networks operate and what you can do to help, you'll learn a lot from this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 and whose only regret is that it's usually too hot to wear my Canadian tuxedo.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago. Fell in love with Thai people commending me for being able to eat spicy food, so I never left.
You eat spicy food?
Yeah, no, they treat it like it's an amazing thing that the foreigners can't normally do.
Like a superpower.
That's right. We want to give a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Kitty Cat Rad, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking about the good work that Childline Thailand is doing to hear why. Once Kitty Cat Rad decided to visit Thailand, she became one of those people.
Love that name, Kitty Cat Rad.
Great name. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons like Kitty Cat Rad also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Thailand's embarrassingly low rankings in English proficiency, some stats on Loy Krathong and Bangkok's attempt this year to offer digital krathongs, thoughts on the 4 a.m. closing time for some nightlife areas, and comments on a depressing video from Twitter that talks about how many young Thai people are leaving Thailand in the rearview mirror. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to all of our bonus and regular show back episodes, over 700 in total, click the support button at the top of our website.
Right, and don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all of our bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast Badass Patrons Only to hear the regular and bonus shows in the same place. Righto, well, this episode is part one of a two-part chat with a young fella by the name of Ilya Smirnoff. Now, for the past 18 years, Ilya has been the executive director of Childline Thailand, an extremely important organization that advocates for children's rights and works to keep children safe by providing them trusted and reliable access to protection, health, and human services. And we got to thinking about this topic after we got a few emails from listeners over the past little while asking about the beggars that they see on Bangkok's streets. Are they freelancers? Are they part of a network? Are the kids with those women really their children? We didn't know, so Ilya was kind enough to join us and give us the details. Now, keep in mind, this interview was recorded before the recent news about Chinese beggars being rounded up by police, but that does highlight what a profitable and predatory practice begging can be in Bangkok. So to tell us more about the upsetting reality of life in Bangkok that many of us don't see or choose not to see, here is my conversation with Ilya Smirnoff. All right, we are psyched to be sitting down here with a guy I just recently met and found out I have quite a lot in common with. We'll get to that in a little bit. We're talking to Ilya Smirnoff. He is the executive director of Childline Thailand. Ilya, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Now, we set this interview up because I recently got a message from, I'm not sure if it was a listener or a patron. Sorry, listener or patron. I don't remember who it was. But they said, you know what I'd really like to learn about? I'd like to learn more about those women holding babies we see all over Bangkok. What's their story? I think we've all heard, stories and rumors about where they come from and how they operate and things like that. And I think it's a really important thing for people to understand. So that's how you and I got connected, and you are definitely the right guy to talk about this. But before we get into that, I just want to say it's very, very funny because totally coincidentally, I found out that you ordained as a monk with our friend Prat Pandit way back in the day. What was that like?
Well, I was quite young, quite stupid. It wasn't planned, for me at least, I think Prapandit, he came with the clear intentions of ordaining.
Sure.
For me, it was more of a accident, let's say. But yeah, it was interesting time. Monastery is definitely good for everyone. Not everyone is good for the monastery.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. And now you eventually you spent 5 years as a forest monk. You said?
Yes, after ordaining with Prapandit, I felt a little bit unsettled in the city tradition, so I disrobed and reordained as a novice in a forest tradition, and then reordained as a monk again.
Wow, you got a hell of a story. And then after that, you left that behind and then came to the big city, so to speak. And here we sit today.
There you go. Yes,
that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's get into the main subject then. So I never heard of Childline before we met. And for those that don't know about it, tell us a little bit about the organization and what it does.
Well, it started as a project between Puen Keo Association and UNICEF. Started in 2003. I was invited to help with writing the project. So we wrote the project, started the helpline. At first, we had 7-digit number, and the kids had a hard time remembering it. So we requested the government for a 4-digit number. Eventually got 4-digit number 1387, the one we have until now.
What does that mean? 7-digit number, 4-digit number?
Well, 7-digit number was used to be a regular landline.
You mean a phone number?
Yeah. So we ran a helpline for kids 24/7.
Oh, I see. So it's like, and this is embarrassing that this is the only one I know, but pizza company has a 4-digit number. Yeah. So I didn't know that was like.
Well, those days, very few, let's say, institutions had 4-digit numbers. So we were one of the, sort of very, very first ones got assigned it. So at that time, the government had the sort of layout that all social services will start with 13.
Okay.
Yeah. So the main number for social services in Thailand is 1300, which is the government center of the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security. And so we got 1387 just by chance, so this is how we kept it. So after 5 years of operating as a project, we decided that it's probably a good time to register the foundation, because at that time it was pretty clear the problem is just, getting bigger and bigger, and it's not going away. So until now, throughout 20 years of our operation, we have responded to over 1 million contacts from children.
And the goal of the organization is to help exploited or vulnerable or abused children.
Well, not just them. We actually are there to first provide a safe space to listen to children, but then connect them to services. Quite early on, we realized that there is quite a number of services available in Thailand, but the complexity of the system and complexity of the social matrix in Thailand is makes it quite hard for anyone to navigate it. Usually in Thailand, if you're in trouble, there's usually someone that is willing or is able to help you. But how do you get in touch with that person or with that service? That's the question. So even for adult, it's quite hard to know where to begin. And for kid, it's almost impossible. So what we said, we're going to open a helpline. You call us and we'll help you to sort it out.
So let's set it up then. A kid calls you and says, I'm lost, or I ran away, or I'm scared. They call you, and what happens? What gets put in motion?
Well, first you need to assess the situation. Is the child in immediate danger? If they are in immediate danger, then we will call the police to respond immediately and safeguard the child, at least for the time being. If the child is not in danger and they indeed, reasonably mature, have a skill set for survival, they run away consciously from home, they don't want to go back. So we will try to build a rapport, connect them to services which will provide them with, basic necessities. Even going to toilet in Bangkok could be quite challenging, Imagine you're a street kid, you wake up in the morning. What do? You go to pee. Where do you pee? A lot of toilets are not available, or, let's say you are at the train station, you have to pay 2 baht to get to the toilet.
Right. Yeah,
what if you don't? So you're already stressed out just from the first steps, What if it's not peeing? What if you need to go
number 2?
Something more serious.
Yeah.
Where do you go? What do you do? do you just do it anywhere and then risk being chased or beaten up by the locals, or so it's a very stressful existence. So we will definitely connect them to a place where they can at least get some kind of safety and security going, and then reassess their situation. Usually, if you look at the statistics previously, 10, 15 years ago, runaways were mostly neglected children. And if you look now, it's mostly abuse and violence that drives them out of homes.
It's an interesting landscape, isn't it? Because like we were talking about when we first met last week when we had lunch, the social situation in Thailand is such that I think a lot of Westerners are not familiar with it, or at least it sounds strange. But, a lot of kids in Thailand are growing up with their uncles or grandparents because the parents go to another province to work in a factory or work somewhere else to send money home, which is not something a lot of people in the West experience. So how does that add a wrinkle to this environment for children?
Not very well. Not very well. Well, according to the last multi-indicator cluster survey, which is a very big mouthful, but it's something that UNICEF does on regular basis. UNICEF Thailand, any UNICEF office in any country will do that. So why is it called multi-indicator cluster survey? So they'll have a bunch of indicators on different clusters like learning, family situation, violence, exposure, and the rest. So in these clusters, they will have multiple indicators where they assess the well-being. So according to the last one, which came out last year, 2022, 70% of Thai children under the age of 18 have a grandparent as their primary caregiver.
70%?
Up to 70%.
Wow.
So yes, so when we talk about a generation gap between parents and children, imagine what kind of generation and skill gap is there between grandparents and children.
Right. Well, my mother-in-law stays with us, so I can see the difference between me and her is enough, but between her and my son is a pretty vast.
Yeah. So the communication breakdown is pretty evident, and when there is a communication breakdown, people usually resort to employ very basic socialization tools, social interaction. What is the most basic one is violence,
Right.
So if you want to try to control the behavior of somebody in your care and you don't have any communication tools available to you, so it's usually something of violent nature.
What's the phrase? When the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. So when there is corporal punishment in the picture, it's because you cannot communicate very well. Violence has that sort of universality to it. It's our primary sort of way of communication. So, and that's why the levels of violence are quite high. If according to the same survey, up to 90% of children have been exposed to violence, and in some cases quite severe ones.
Wow. It's a real dichotomy, isn't it? Because Thailand is known for its very tight family structures and its reliance on family and how close family are and how important family is as a unit to Thai's existence. It's totally normal to live with your parents well into your 30s or whatever.
Or even later.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's this real break in that is often tragic and becomes quickly can spiral into abuse or neglect.
I think it's more, I'm not political structure expert, but usually if you have countries with weak social support structures, people tend to stay in families much longer, so because family is your support structure and family members rely on each other because they have lesser reliance on the social fabric.
Yeah, right.
So it's much more well-knit. But the problem is once you have any kind of social structure, then there is a power imbalance. And if in our society we try to mitigate power imbalance through various social institutions, in the family it's usually not available.
Right. Man, there's a deep level of analysis going on here that is it must be how do you keep on top of this mentally? And it must be hard. It must be a very hard job what you do.
Yes, in some sense, but if you're able to help just one kid, like sometimes, kid comes back and message my some of my counselors, hey, that time you helped me, thank you so much, and then they post it in our group chat.
Oh, wow.
It's really great, when some cases really suck, pardon my French, but when you're able to help, it's very rewarding. So yeah, at the same time, this job is not an easy one, but it's extremely rewarding in
Right.
some cases. Yeah.
Right. What's your relationship with the police like? You mentioned if you have a call from someone, you call the police. And Ed and I on the show, we're always looking for positive Thai police stories because, they have such a bad reputation. And the first thing people often go to is, oh, of course the police did this because they suck. But, like when my bike was stolen a few months ago, my experience with the police was they were on the ball, they were professional, they were helpful. When you're dealing with cases like you deal with, what's your relationship like with the police and how do they operate?
Well, police in Thailand is not a homogeneous unit. Yeah. So it's a very, differentiated structure, very compartmentalized. You need to know who do you talk to. There is plenty of good police. There's plenty of bad police. And within every unit, you can always identify someone that can be helpful.
Good. That's good to know.
The other good thing to know is that some police units are at odds with other police units. So you can use one police unit to put pressure on another police unit.
Oh, okay. I got enough of that in high school. The click.
Yeah.
landscape.
So you see, like you have the sort of what they call it, the regular local police, they're under one unit, but then you have the Central Investigation Bureau that looks after all the investigations, so there is different units. Now you have a special center for protection of women and children under the Police General Surachet, as probably a lot of people know him as Big Joke,
Okay,
Yeah, so there is different units that you can assess. You have to be a little bit smart because the police itself does not provide you with coordination and communication. So you have to work it out yourself, but you can always find a way where they can be helpful.
Good. And I mean, that's why an organization like yours, that's where the value comes in, right? Because someone new is not going to know these networks and not know who's bad, who's good, who to contact.
But in any kind of bureaucracy, a record is better than no record. So why we call the police? 191 has automatic recording. So there is no way the police can deny that we have registered a case with them. And once they distribute it to the local police have to respond. Otherwise, they will be neglectful. So, there is different things to a system. And the Thai police system is extremely complicated and quite complex, So, but you can leverage some positive points, especially when it comes to the kids.
Great. Well, let's bring things down to street level, literally. I see usually it's a lot of women holding young children on the street in Bangkok, and it's depressing as hell. But I never give them money for two reasons. One is that I can't give money to everyone I see, otherwise I'd be living on the street with them. I'd be so broke. Two is that I've heard so many stories over years and years from all different people that they're part of a network, that's not their real baby, that they drug the babies, that they're just sort of being, for lack of a better word, pimped out by a beggar master, which is the word I used. So can you talk a little bit about these networks of beggars? Do they exist? How they work? How do you know which ones are involved? Or is there even a way to know that at all?
Yeah, usually there is different types, yeah. There is organized networks, semi-organized networks. There is freelancers, okay. There is locals, and there is migrants as well. Right. So the ones that you usually see in central Bangkok, are organized. Because it's quite difficult for a freelancer to kind of survive on their own outside there. They have to move too much. Because you need to look out for the police, you need to look out for the guards, you need to look out for everyone. So to manage something like this, it's semi-organized crime, So basically you have some kind of head of the organization or some kind of manager, and then they will recruit and provide those people with stations. How can you tell? If you come early enough, you will see them being sent over by some type of vehicle, and dropped off one by one.
Interesting. There's a lot of money to be made in this.
For them, it is probably, it really depends, but overall, it does pay, and everyone makes money. People who are on the border make money. People who transport them here make money. The doctors that look after them make money because they do get sick. People who make food for them make money. People who own the lodging where they stay make money. The handler makes money, and then the people themselves also make money. So in a way, that's why, this type of human exploitation still is around, because it unfortunately pays.
But the way you described it, it almost sounds like a legitimate business. Everyone's making money. They're seeing doctors. Where's the harm?
That's how they view themselves, That's exactly the thing. A lot of them actually view themselves as doing good to these families, because back home over there, they'll be just sitting in the village not having nothing, So this is something that is difficult to wrap mind around, is that sometimes a bad thing can still be a better thing for someone.
Right. It's all relative, right?
Yes. So unfortunately, these families have so little opportunity that is such an exploitative situation is still attractive to them.
So can we still legitimately drop 20 baht in a cup?
No, you shouldn't. You should never give any money. Because most of that money is not going to make it to them.
How does that work? Like at the end of the day, their beggar master comes by, rounds them up?
They usually have lookouts anyway, and they monitor each other as well, because, it's not a trusting kind of team effort company. They all watch each other.
Right.
So if you try to sneak a little bit of money here and there, the other one will report you to the...
Okay.
And then you will be punished.
I mean, you what you said, like it sounds legit. Everyone gets paid and everyone's happy, but they're not.
Yet it's an exploitation.
But it's an exploitative, and there's probably also risk that things can go really wrong. I bet a lot of people.
And they do sometimes, but for those people, it's worth the risks. So that's why it's so difficult to help. Let's say you come across somebody like that, you report it to me, to my team. My team liaises with the police. The police come, arrest them. They are placed into the government shelter. And then the request to go out, in fact, they haven't really committed any crime. They can most of the time prove that the baby is theirs,
So the baby is often theirs? How does that work? I mean,
legally it is. They have all the paperwork. That's why they're not detained. Anytime a person is detained with a child that they cannot prove is theirs, they will have to undergo a DNA test. And statistics shows that a lot of them, it's actually their babies.
Really interesting.
The problem is it's difficult with adults. With a kid, it's wrong. You cannot, allow a kid to be in a begging situation. Because that's an exploitation. The problem is there are certain leeways in the Thai law. If you obtain what they called a card for talent display, but แสดงความสามารถ Okay. So if you have one of those, you can actually display your talent in the street.
It's like a busking license?
Sort of, yeah. And in fact, there was a very famous case that we tried to make a case with the Department of, with the Minister of Social Development. There was a kid playing piano at Sathorn here on the Chongnan Sea. She was making quite a sizable amount of money for her family.
The little girl on the bridge here.
Yeah.
She's great. Yeah,
she's great. The problem is she's out of school, and she has to do this so that her elder sister goes to the international school, to the private school. Sorry, not international school. Private
really
school.
Interesting.
Yes, and her mother doesn't work. She just looks after her, So she basically supports the family of two. It's not my place to pass a judgment, but we have filed a complaint with the Department of Children and Youth, and they have passed the assessment that there is no exploitation clause here. But it does happen to the kids in the entertainment sector in Thailand, where I think what their parents do to them is actually crossing a border of exploitation already, because they make so much money and they cannot stop making money. And right now there is also such cases with YouTubers, TikTokers, and especially young ones, where they are the main earners of the family sometimes, and if you look at the Convention on the Rights of the Child, that shouldn't be the case. I mean, I understand the kids want to contribute to their family, but there should be a balance, a better balance. You are homeschooled and your sister goes to private school, but you have to play piano all day, all night, just to support the family. I'm not sure whether that's the right balance.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I'm an NGO. I don't have the authority to pass decisions on this. So I can only bring this to attention to the authorities, and they can determine their decision.
Dude, talk about a cool organization and a cool guy. I'm so glad someone is doing this work.
Yeah, it must be really hard, man. He's got one of those jobs that I don't even want to think about some of the scenes he's probably seen or dealt with. It must be incredibly hard sometimes. But dude's been doing it for a long time, and
for sure.
They're quite well known, and he's done some really good work. So it's one of those jobs it deals with the ugly side of life that, like I said, a lot of people don't see or just choose to ignore. And it's good to know that someone's out there doing something.
Man, I love NGOs and NGO people. There's nothing wrong with living your life to make some dough and improve your status and climb up. There's something to be said for that. But I like people who just see something in society that is wrong, that needs work, and then they devote themselves to that. And obviously you can make some money doing that kind of thing, but obviously working for charitable organizations, NGOs, generally not a way to get rich. So I commend anyone doing that kind of work.
Right. And you guys reminds me of that old, the famous Mr. Rogers quote, look for the helpers, look for the people helping. And Ilya's definitely one of the people that is helping. So good on him for that, and his team as well. So look for part 2 next week. And many thanks to Ilya for coming on and chatting. It was really cool to learn about that.
Thank you, Ilya.
All right, let's do something we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks 2 contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. Ed, this week, it's all yours.
All right, you're a movie guy.
Sure am.
I think we can agree with that. But you're not super big into like horror or scary movies, are you?
No, not really. I love them, but I'm too much of a wimp to I appreciate how they're crafted, but I'm too much of a wimp to watch them.
All right. Okay. Maybe this question isn't fair, but I'm just curious your opinion. Obviously, you've seen some, but Thailand is known for ghost movies. But what I want to do, first of all, is segment off the goofy, silly ghost movies. So it's like, listeners, if you're not familiar with this, Thailand is quite famous for, I guess you'd call them comedy horror movies.
Right.
That's like a whole segment of movies in Thailand, right? But so I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about genuine Thai ghost movies. But my question was going to be which do you think are actually scarier? Like Western ghost or scary movies or Thai scary movies? And I think I've got thoughts on this. I think there's a lot of factors involved, but I want to make clear, I'm not talking about the silly, goofy ghost movies. And so in a way, okay, my question is, okay, I'm cheating a little bit. It's not so much would you rather, it's which do you think is actually scarier? So if you wanted to be scared, would you turn to like a Western scary movie or a Thai scary movie?
That's a good question. Man, it's kind of an unfair question because I the last 23 years I've only ever really seen Thai scary movies. The last Western scary movie I saw was probably The Ring, which was 16 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think I gotta say, Oh, wow, this is a really interesting one. Probably Thai movies because the ghosts that they like the ghost resources that they can pull from are far more creative and potentially scary. But Westerners, you've got like a poltergeist and you've got a demon and
Interesting.
that's
Oh, I like that.
kind of it, right? And then you've got like Freddy Krueger and stuff.
I like that take. I like that take. It's funny. I think I'm in agreement with you, but part of it might be that I grew up obviously on Western scary movies, and being an older person, I'm just less scared by it. I've kind of seen it. Obviously, like I still think The Exorcist, of course, is scary, and
Right.
I grew up on like classic scary movies and horror.
Sure, yeah.
But now when a Western scary movie comes out, I'm usually like, oh God, like that would bore me to death. But a lot of Asian horror, obviously the Ring was originally a Japanese movie, and I saw the original of that, and it scared me to death. And so I feel now like Thai scary movies scare me more than Western scary movies.
Yeah, dude, like me and my son and my wife went to see The Creator a few months back. And at the beginning of it, like I looked at it carefully and my son, I'm like, well, you're probably a little bit too young for this, but it's not scary and it's just like video game violence. And he was fine with it. But at the beginning of The Creator, they showed a trailer for this scary ass Thai movie. And my son, poor kid, was plugging his ears and closing his eyes and ducking down.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, no.
it looked terrifying.
I mean, I'm not sure these Thai scare movies are actually better movies. I just think because it's just Thai stuff is scarier. Like I've seen so many Western scary movies that now all these, like anytime they have the like chanting monks late at night and like weird sounds and like a weird ghost up in the rafters, like it scares the hell out of me. Like it's creepier. It's
Right.
like I find it creepier maybe because I'm a foreigner or it's different, it's exotic and scary. So I basically it's not even just Thai horror, just Asian horror and Japanese horror. I find it, for me personally, it scares me more than Western horror these days.
Yeah, you're right. I think I would have to go with that. Like if someone said, hey, you have to crap your pants by watching a scary movie, I'd choose probably something from the Asian ghost oeuvre rather than the Western one. Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right. We're in agreement. So
Yeah.
would you rather be scared to death? Yeah. I'm going to go Thai ghost movie as long as it's not one of the silly comedy ones.
That's right, where they see a ghost and then run away Benny Hill style.
That's right.
Over the mountain.
All right.
That's funny.
All right. So, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Kitty Cat Rad for lending us her support at the show shoutout level. Greg, what did you find out about Kitty Cat?
Well, beyond having the most awesome name ever, like I just like saying Kitty Cat Rad. There's a rock band name, maybe a superhero. Everyone, look up in the sky. It's Kitty Cat Rad. Be pretty cool. But she sent me some nice messages from your home country, the United States of Hysteria. And she says she currently lives in the U.S. and actually met her boyfriend earlier this year while vacationing in Phuket.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I was definitely not looking for anything romantic, but hey, life can be surprises sometimes. I since went back to see him a number of times, and I'm actually planning on going back again in January of next year. My ultimate goal is to move to Thailand, which will be the biggest decision I have ever made.
Sure.
Then she says, nowadays, the only thing on my mind is Thailand, and that's all I ever talk about. Yes, I have become that person.
I get it now.
Let me ask you, Ed, when you came to Thailand, like when you had made the decision to come here, what did you tell people? Because for me, like I was kind of like kitty cat. When I decided to come to Thailand, I thought I was such a dumbass. I literally thought I'd be like exploring temples and going places where no one has been before. And I couldn't stop talking like, hey, by the way, do you know I'm going to Thailand? And the more I said that, the more I realized that everyone had been here before.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. It's funny. I came on relatively short notice, so I don't think I really talked about it too much. Okay. I think after I came here and stayed here, it was so mind blowing for me. We've talked about our first couple of years here. I was probably more intolerable after I got here than before I left.
Don't worry, man. I like you just fine. But yeah, kitty cat, I feel you. I know what that's like. You're like, hey, I'm going to Thailand. You're about to embark on this adventure. And that's fine. But, back in the day, of course, we didn't have a great resource like the Bangkok podcast to give you the straight dope.
That's right.
about what's life like here. So anyway, so she's become that person, but that's okay. You're allowed to be that person for a while.
For sure.
I love listening to you guys' podcast because it's informative, entertaining, and you two are great hosts. I appreciate how topics are discussed in a respectful and articulate manner.
I think she's talking about me, the articulate thing. I think she's talking about me there.
Well, that's okay because the next sentence she says, plus you two are so funny together, clearly talking about me. I look forward to the show. I look forward to the show and the bonus episode every week. Keep up the great work. So
that's sweet. That's sweet. Thank you, Kitty Cat.
Thank you, Kitty Cat Rad. Let us know when you're back in town and we'll head out for a beer with you and your boyfriend.
For sure. All right. A final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKK Greg. Thank you for listening, everyone. Wrap up if you're cold. I'll see you back here next week.
For sure.
Hang on a second. I'm just going to change my headphones.
Your head looks super shiny and bright.
Just for you. Yeah, I think I need to get new headphones. This connector is obviously a little bit wonky. No problems with these ones. All right.
Cool.